Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Agency. This week, I'm really excited to have Adam Weil from the White Rabbit Group on the show. Adam, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we talked previously, and one of the things that I thought was interesting in your backstory is that you started knocking doors for a living.
Mhm.
And fast forward to today, you're running, a 3 million plus dev shop. Can you talk a little bit about uh, how you went from that to where you are today?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny thinking about it too. I can even go back a step further, which I think is relevant, which is in college, I started a clothing company, which was not successful. Don't even look it up. But it gave me a chance to learn how to create graphics and how to use Illustrator and Photoshop, which I didn't know anything about. I studied business in college, but I love to draw, but I couldn't get the drawings into a t-shirt. I said, how do you do that? So I just
Mm.
taught myself Illustrator, and I just got obsessed with it. I was like staying up till midnight, even though I had a class the next day. I was obsessed. I mean, literally, the sun would come up, and I'd still be like on my computer. And so that was the first moment where I was like, all right, maybe I should look into computer stuff a little bit more. And fast forward a little bit, I got into sales and I started doing door to door, which was just a wild experience. I mean, pure commission. There's no base salary. I mean, you're literally working for your money every day. And thankfully, I had a good product at the time. It was a alarm system that I really believed in, and yeah, it just got me a chance to deal with rejection, and you have to persevere and just go to the next. As they say, like some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. So you kind of learn those skills of kind of entrepreneurial and perseverance. And but then after doing that for a while, I said, I don't really want to be knocking doors for a living. What do I want to do? And so I dug back into my graphic design days and said, all right, what if I design websites? And
Mhm.
so I ended up hiring a consultant that taught me how to do that, how to outsource. And I said, let's take the leap. So I just started doing freelancing, and then that turned into a company and hired some employees. And yeah, and that's ultimately how I got to where I'm at now.
Nice. That's a kind of a fun story. Are there any? I guess I should probably pivot a little bit. I know that you're a white label, or I know you don't necessarily like that term, but you work with other agencies.
I don't
Um,
mind it. I don't mind the term. It's a bad stigma though. I think there's a lot of companies that say white label and they just don't do a good job. And so it's
mm,
unfortunately created a stigma to it. But yeah, outsourced I think is kind of what we're currently going with. I
gotcha.
cut you off. What was your question?
Well, just like what was it an accident that you like kind of decided to um,
Mm, to go
kind of
that
go
white
that
label route?
approach specifically, or was it something that was intentional from pretty early on?
Good question. Totally an accident. So what happened was I built my own web design shop, and I relied on outsourcing my development because I wasn't technical. I knew enough. I educated myself well enough to understand how things work, but I wasn't the one in there coding. I always relied on different teams, and I tried bringing it in house. I tried, excuse me, local contractors. I tried outsourcing it to South America, to Eastern Europe, to India. I mean, I really tried it all. Like I went through a dozen different development teams and structures, and they all, one way or another, didn't meet my needs. Maybe they'd start off well at first, but then I'd get handed off to someone else, and the communication would be spotty, or there'd be no QA, or the CMS was just a mess, and there was a bunch of misspellings,
Hmm.
or the site was super bloated and like wouldn't, they just hacked it together. So there were so many things that went wrong. That's when I really appreciated what good engineering looks like.
Hmm.
And I didn't even really know what that was until I met White Rabbit. So White Rabbit reached out to me and said, hey, how about we, do some of your development, typical sales pitch, cold email. And it took me about a year to try them, because I was just, you know, I when you're outsourcing that sort of stuff, you're not just outsourcing code. It's like it's your reputation.
Yeah.
And so I had talked to the founder. His name was Greg. He was in Chico. I was in Sacramento at the time, so we both were in California. but I still was shy to try them out. But once I did, it just was great. Greg was the co-founder at the time and project manager, so I really got to experience, what White Rabbit was all about at that small early scale. And I never hired another development team, and we became friends. And he ended up acquiring my shop, and I built out our design team, and I joined as a partner in 2019.
Cool. So essentially, I mean, it's a little bit of a different pathway to leading an agency, but
Yeah.
essentially it's two agencies becoming one.
Yep.
Um, did that change kind of the service offerings, or like you basically just combined services and uh,
Yeah.
just everything?
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that you asked that question, because at the time, I remember the positioning was we build websites and mobile apps, or web and mobile apps, for our integrated partners and clients. And so at the time, Greg and the team were working with agencies, and they were also working with direct clients. And when I came in, I just knew exactly what it felt like from the agency side. And I was like, man, there's so much opportunity here. There's so many agencies that struggle to find good developers. And I just thought White Rabbit's model was so brilliant, having the technical PM stateside, so you have that on time zone communication, and then also the co-founder Abhilash manages the India team in person
Mhm.
on site, so there was like actual leadership ownership there on site. And those two together with like high quality output, and like some cost savings there, allows an agency to upsell. I just thought the whole model was brilliant. So I was like, let's go all in on that. And I helped redesign our website, and just kind of doubled down, I think, on that agency positioning.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned this a little bit previously, but um, early on, it sounds like you had kind of project managers running most everything. Um,
Hmm.
Later on, you shifted to like bringing on account managers.
Yeah.
Um, how has that helped kind of business at White Rabbit?
Yeah. A lot. And it's funny. I was just talking with Greg about what our most important hire is right now, and it's for an account manager.
Hmm.
And even just like a year and a half or 2 years ago, I don't think that hire was even on our radar at all. Like, we just didn't have account management, and we've been around for almost 10 years. So yeah, I mean, it was all run by these technical PMs, and it got us to where we're at. I mean, it's working, but I think when it comes to expanding that account, growing that account, really being like a trusted advisor for that agency, like a business advisor, not just like a technical vendor.
Hmm.
You need to have a different role coming in there, that does a whole bunch of other things we can talk about. But yeah, and we're still figuring it out. Honestly, I mean, it's only been maybe a year and a half since we've had that role, and I still think we're spread way too thin relative to the amount of agencies that we have, um, versus account managers on staff.
Yeah.
But we're trying. We're figuring it out.
Yeah. I mean, was it, did that decision come from like somebody else recommending it to you, or just kind of like seeing that that was kind of a model that people were using and wanting to
Yeah,
experiment with it? Like what, um, I
yeah,
guess kind of what led to that decision?
yeah. We thought about it over the years. I know it's something we brought up in a leadership call, I think in 2022, and we shot it down pretty early. I mean, you always know about account managers. It's this very common role in agencies, but I think because it was working so well with the project managers, and also thinking about our positioning in kind of the agency client layer, us trying to be as lean as possible so that we could, pass on those savings to the agency. We didn't
Hmm.
want to add too many layers there and too much cost. Um, we were quite happy with where our margins were sitting, and so we didn't feel that we needed to have that role. Um, and because you don't have someone in that role experimenting and like seeing what could come of really good account management, you don't know what you're missing, right? So I think it just took us a while until our director of services, Marshall Bellinger, said, "Hey, I want to do it. I want to lead it." And at the time, he was managing our PMs, and I think he has a natural sales sort of entrepreneurial mindset. And so I think it was just very natural for him to propose that idea, and we've let him run with it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, I know from a business standpoint, like the role of account management, a lot of times it's basically to deepen that relationship, see if there's opportunities for expansion. Really,
Right.
they're like a key role for maybe driving more retention for the agency overall, like making sure you have clients for as long as possible.
Right.
Have you ever done anything around like I've talked to some other agency folks who've like when they are trying to find somebody to take on more of the sales hat, that there's like pretty good synergy between the account management role and a sales role. Have you experimented with that at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now, when a new partner, new potential partner comes into the picture, they say, hey, we want an estimate. We have a client that's interested in this type of project. I will bring in an account manager as soon as possible because I want them to I want the agency to experience working with them in that estimate process, because if it closes, if we win the project, they're going to continue working with that account manager. So I'd rather just have them know each other instead of have to hand it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, naturally, I think they tend to be more of the sales minded individuals. Also, what we do is there's no sort of hard closing at all. So I just think you mainly need someone that leads with curiosity, and that wants to be as helpful as possible, and then just knows the fundamentals of proper follow-up. And that's about all it takes to get closes done for us.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of agency partnerships. I know a lot of times the idea of a partnership, like at least what I've seen is, one agency will agencies will talk to each other and they say, oh yeah, let's develop a partnership.
Yeah.
Let's get a referral agreement in place.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of sits there on both sides. Like both sides are waiting for the other person to send a referral. Your partnerships have worked, I think, much better than what I've heard elsewhere. Can you talk a little bit about like what you found works well?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, you want to have the paperwork done. I think that helps, but I think it's more about the long game. We always say it's all about trust and timing. So you may want to work with someone and trust them, but you don't have a project right now. And because you don't have a project, if too much time goes by, you're not going to be top of mind when that opportunity comes up. It's so funny how much this happens, where I'll reach out to someone who I haven't talked to in quite a while, and then like a few days later, oh, that's funny timing, we actually got a project. It's not that there's been no projects between when I talked to them a year ago and when I just reached out and there just happens to be one. That's not a coincidence. It's because I was top of mind and I was relevant in their mind. And so I think it's really about staying in touch, having a system to follow up with people and check in, and not just say, hey, how's it going? Like actually have like something meaningful and relevant to say. Easier said than done, but looking at their LinkedIn, keeping track of people, have your CRM set up so that when there's something that you could bring them. I was talking with Joe Rinaldi recently, and he was saying that every agency should have at least like 2 to 4 free pieces of value that they provide every year that they just give away. Because that alone, if you don't have something meaningful and relevant to say, and all you got is the weather to talk about, at the very least, have some free value that you can just send them. So that's actually something we're working on right now, is we're building out an AI powered estimator where they can upload their brief, upload an RFP, whatever. And we fed it all of our data from historical data, along with some of the new AI processes that we're using. And it produces a really detailed estimate with timeline, recommended tech stack, risks, estimated hours on the low end and high end. So it's a really useful tool for them. And then from there, they can easily just request the human estimate, and then that gets in our queue. So that's like an example of something free I'm just going to be giving out here pretty soon. And so I think it's important to get the ball rolling with free value. And then once a project's closed, that's kind of a whole other topic in and of itself too.
Yeah. No, that's just a great insight. I've heard like variations on that a number of times, but I like how concise that is. Um, so one of the other things we talked about previously was that you guys saw big growth between 2019 into 2022,
Yeah.
but then it slowed down. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
like what happened there and how things have been since?
Yeah. I'm sure, agencies listening are probably going to go, yeah, I kind of recognize that. I not everyone, made it through COVID okay, especially agencies that lean more on in-person events, but very heavy on the digital side. Agencies did pretty well, I would say, during that period. And especially like 2021. I mean, if anybody remembers how hard it was to hire at that time, I mean, that was like the time to get a job. I felt like some of the salaries that people were demanding was quite outrageous relative to the market today. But yeah, that was an interesting time. I mean, I remember during COVID, we did I think it was a Jewish college website celebration, all online. So there were new opportunities that were coming up for us like never before. Everything was online at that point.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty good time for us. The other thing I think helped was cold email. I mean, I felt like I cracked the code. I mean, I would just find on LinkedIn the best of the best agencies that I wanted to work with that I really felt like was a good fit. I'd see how many developers they had if they didn't have a lot and they had case studies for websites. I was like, man, this is a good fit. I should reach out to them. And then I'd write a really personalized email. I'd spend a lot of time on it. I wasn't blasting a million people. That really worked well. I mean, I had like a 20% reply rate at one point.
Oh, wow.
For like a year, like a solid year, looking back, 20% reply rate is incredible. That is no longer the case. It's like, we don't even really do cold email at this point anymore because it's so not effective. So yeah, I think everything moving digital plus cold email working at the time, I think all that really contributed to our growth.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like you kind of hit the nail on the head with the whole cold email approach. I think at least what I saw is prior to the pandemic, like some people were doing cold email, some people weren't. But
Yeah.
when everything went online, it was like, well, like a lot of the in-person things were just off the table. And so cold email was, there's way more people flooding into that space.
Yeah.
I think it all honestly maybe partially led to its less effectiveness now because it got so saturated,
Yeah.
that people all of a sudden like they kind of put up more, like they could smell it a mile away, and they're
Totally.
like, yeah, I'm a little more skeptical of this. But I think honestly, too, what you were saying too is, when you're really personalized with it, a lot of times that's how you can cut through the noise.
Yeah.
I think now with AI, the hard part is trying to be personalized, but not
Yeah.
in a fake personalization sort of way.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if you mention too many specific things, then people are gonna be like,
Yeah.
AI wrote this, and you're like, no, I promise,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually wrote this.
Yeah.
But if you say too little, then it seems like it's generic. So it's,
Yeah.
I think that's made cold email just a little bit more tricky these days. But I think, kind of to your point of your conversation with Joe Rinaldi, like that's where maybe some of that free value can come in, where it's like you could maybe do some cold outbound and provide some free value. So it's not like you're connecting with someone on LinkedIn and then DMing them
Right.
a minute later with some sort of request. You're just saying, hey, we produce this thing.
Right.
People find it helpful. Just wanted to pass it along to you.
Yeah. 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 Totally. I think it's just the way to go. I almost thought about doing a campaign where it's like, okay, this is an automated email. However, based on our prospecting research, I see that you are, and then like a few bullet points, at a 50-person agency, like just some validation where it's like, yeah, I actually think we are a good fit because of these reasons. I'm not going to ask anything. I just wanted to pass along this free tool, whatever, something that's genuinely helpful. And I'm not going to send another email. I just want you to have us top of mind for this sort of thing in the future and leave you with something that you can actually use. And like literally that's it with no follow up. Like almost like you're handing out flyers. You know what I mean? Like I came from the door knocking days.
Yeah.
You know, my friend built a you know, $50 million company doing door to door. It's very possible to have a successful business from just doing outreach. And I think there's just creative ways you need to kind of keep evolving to make it work today. But yeah, it's got to be done in like a way that feels good, because you can also damage your reputation with doing poor outreach too. Not only can you not get responses, you can also do some really bad damage on your reputation.
Yeah. Another thing I've heard too, around cold email is that is the impact of it can be really amplified if you're also pairing it with something that's getting you like visibility out there. So like if you're running paid ads or you're posting content regularly, then when you do, you know, send a cold email, it's like, oh, I think I've heard of you guys before.
Yeah,
Like they're more likely to open it and engage with it versus if
true.
it's like, oh, I never heard of you. Is
Right.
this a scam? Like that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. Like there needs to be like some signs of credibility out
Yeah.
there. But and if you have those, that can maybe make the effectiveness of your cold efforts at least a little bit more effective.
Yeah. Kind of stop treating it like demand generation and more like brand awareness.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Um, well, let's see. I think I think you said that you're right. You're still kind of figuring out the right sort of account management to agency ratio.
Hmm.
But how much would you say that you're actually investing in those relationships these days?
Well, we're just investing with salaries and time. So how do I quantify that? We're still trying to figure out the framework for how much time we spend with an agency, but the process for us, I feel pretty good about. If you're curious, I'd like to maybe walk through that, what that looks
Yeah,
like
yeah,
for us. So typically it looks like I said earlier, as soon as there's an opportunity in estimate, bring in that account manager for that early conversation to help estimate it, but then also lead with curiosity. What are is this a project you guys get often? Are you looking to get more of this type of project? What are your goals as an agency? Just start asking those curiosity questions about their business overall outside of just that one project. I think that's the very, very first step is you have to just, because if you just treat yourself as a vendor from day one, trying to switch later to like more of a business advisor, strategic kind of partner role, it feels weird. So you want to do that from day one. And then I think the kickoff meeting is also a really important time for you to establish, just to make that really good first impression, but then
hmm
also plant the seed on how important the retro is at the end of the project, and that you want to make sure that gets on the calendar. So you're just planting the seed then. And then before the project is over, you make sure you get that retro on the calendar, because once it's over, you're not going to, it's hard to get the retro at that point.
yeah,
So get it on the calendar. And then that's when you start asking questions about, yeah, do they want to move more in that direction, do more of those types of projects, or is this just kind of a one-off thing? If there's any sort of interest, it's like, okay, well, are you interested in a strategy call? We work with a lot of agencies. We see what works, what doesn't work. I'd love to share what we're seeing, work with you guys, work for an agency like you guys. So you're just trying to see their interest there. Is it worth your time investing more? And then that's when you set up a strategy call, usually within 30 days later. At that point, you set it up on the call in that retro. And then in between that time is when you're reaching out to the people in the agency and you're establishing what I call the three legs to the stool. So you have your leadership leg, which usually is a CEO or COO or head of services. And then you have your sales leg, which is some sort of business development leader. And then you have the project management leg. So you want to have a relationship with all three of those individuals at the company, and you want to figure out who they are, because there's usually one kind of major leadership person that you want to, know. The salesperson, they need to be able to they need to be able to sell what you do.
Yeah.
And they need to understand it. Like, okay, what are all the services you offer? How do I sell it? And then obviously the project manager that you work with, you have to have a good relationship with them, because they can also, if any one of those stools of the leg falls off, project manager doesn't like working with you, sales team doesn't know how to sell or talk about what you guys do at all, or their leadership team doesn't appreciate or value you guys, stool falls over.
Yeah.
So like I said, that 30-day window in between the retro and the strategy call, you're reaching out to those people one-on-one. Hey, how you doing? And try to have a one-on-one call with them, and just, again, try to figure out what their individual goals are related to the company goals. This could happen in between, like I said, the retro and the strategy call, or it could happen after the strategy call. I think if it happens before, it's even better, because what you want to do in the strategy call is get them to a point where they, what they say, like, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
If you've had those one-on-ones leading up to that point, it's much easier to have a strategy call where you can get to a point where they're comfortable opening up their roster of clients. Let's see who we might be able to upsell, or just, send us a list of those clients and we'll do a free audit. We'll look at each one of them and we'll identify where the lowest hanging fruit is, where you could go in there with a conversation that says, hey, your website is really outdated, or it's super slow. It's not converting well at all. Are you open to a proposal? And if it's, again, their existing clients, those are the ones that are going to be the easiest for them to sell. So that's the process. And from there, after that strategy call, you get them on board with that, and you set up a quarterly business review after that. So moving forward, it's those quarterly business reviews plus those one-on-ones where you're checking in with those three individuals, the three legs of the stool, to make sure that they're staying accountable to what they agreed to, and that you're doing what you can to support them. Maybe their leadership team doesn't fully understand, how the QA process works, or, how they can pitch, to people within their network. Maybe their sales team doesn't know how to sell you guys, so you should do a lunch and learn. It's those sort of things. And if they tell you, the last thing I'll say here is, if they tell you that they're not really interested in actively growing that side of the business, it's more of a passive thing, that's totally fine. And you want to have language that pulls that out of them, because you don't want to spend all this time investing into an agency that doesn't really want to grow. So I think that's the big thing, is getting the right people in the room, making sure they understand you care about them personally and their goals on a personal level, aligning the whole team to a vision together. And then if it's not aligning, cut them loose, put them in a quarterly check-in via email and keep it pretty light.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, kind of coming full circle, we started talking about how you were knocking doors and kind of getting comfortable with sales. It sounds like that's, there's a little bit of overlap there with kind of this process of building relationships with these key people.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that sort of background, that experience, kind of led you to kind of land on that approach of kind of, we need to establish these three key relationships in order to kind of have longevity with this client?
I don't know if I really learned it through the door-to-door. I think the door-to-door gave me a lot more confidence and willingness to do outreach and be a little bit bold and test different things and try to find the fun in that, try to really crack that code in the same way where I was able to do it in the in-person environment.
Yeah.
I think it was just being an agency myself and knowing what it was like trying to sell what White Rabbit does and communicate that value to my client, I saw a lot of struggle there, and I saw where things could go wrong. I don't necessarily mean that I saw the struggle with myself. I think it went pretty smooth. But when I started to talk with other agencies and figure out, nah, they don't have the same level of confidence as I do. Well, why not? Where are the gaps? That's when I started to really kind of map out, okay, these are the 3 people. And it's just pattern recognition. Over time, you see, all right, this agency's brought us 4 projects this year. Why haven't they brought us 10? It's like, well, their sales team doesn't know how to talk about us. Oh, okay. I saw that with this other agency too. Or their sales guy loves us, but like their leadership team never approves our budgets. They think we're too much. Maybe they don't understand the fact that we have, on time zone support, and we actually have a dedicated QA team that saves their team a lot of time. So I need to have a conversation to educate them and, see if we can make it work. So like I said, it took a long time, honestly, to figure out. I mean, I've been at White Rabbit for about 7 years, and, we didn't even bring the account management role until about 2 years ago. So yeah.
Nice. Well, for the folks, I mean, and I think your story is a little bit atypical in the fact that, like, the people you want to be kind of directly working with, maybe following this, is you'd love to meet with other agencies who maybe want to offer what you do, but as like part of their agency. So, like, who would you say are like best fit partners for you?
Mm-hmm.
So if any of them are listening, they know they should reach out.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Yeah, I would say it's strategy, design, creative agencies, that sort of bucket. So if you're a branding agency, you're doing a lot of brands, it's a very natural next step for them to go, all right, well, we need to redo our website and our app. And, do you have someone that can do that? And maybe the agency is used to referring that out, which that's fine. Agencies refer us projects. We're happy to be on the receiving end of that. But I think a better alternative is to offer that to them. And you can still tell them you have a partner, and you can ask them, would you like us to manage that and make sure that brand is properly translated over? Most times that client's going to say, absolutely, because they've paid good money. They've gone through that process. They don't want to just hand it off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it is. It's the creative agency simply overseeing it. And I think we really allow those types of agencies to focus on the stuff that they do really well and that they enjoy. And they really get to offload that other stuff that they don't enjoy. And there's someone that, like I said, is on time zone, that's able to, be proactive, look around the corner in ways that they're not, and provide them accurate estimates, flag any sort of concerns, and then do all of the due diligence of QA and making sure it's delivered properly. So I think it's, like I said, creative agencies, branding agencies, strategy firms that want to continue owning that relationship. The bonus is that they can mark up our rate and make a pretty healthy profit.
Nice.
I mean, I've seen some agencies, earn $500,000 a year just from the projects they brought us, and we're doing, 90% of the work or more. So yeah, those are the ones I think it's a good fit for.
Awesome. Well, if they were to, if some of those folks are listening in, what's the best way for them to find you and explore a relationship?
Yeah, I think on our website is a good spot if they want to learn a little bit more. They can also grab a time on my calendar there. We have our calendar just embedded in the website. So feel free to grab a time with me. Happy to chat.
That's awesome. Well, Adam, this was a blast. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit more about kind of how you're approaching white label and just partnerships in general. I really think my biggest takeaway is kind of the importance of that three-legged stool when it comes to account management. So, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, David. Really appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thanks.
All right. Take care.